Welcome to the Packaging Therapist podcast. I am your host, Jessie Schwartz. I've been a packaging engineer for 20 years and currently the founder of Strategic Packaging Partners, where we are obsessed with creating strategic approaches to packaging to enable growth and cost savings in the CPG industry. My goal in this podcast is to discuss hot topics in the packaging space to enable you to make strategic decisions for your business that impact the bottom line and take the chaos out of manufacturing. Join us for technical discussions about packaging, and let's make the world of manufacturing better together. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today I am joined by my friend Pam, and we are going to recap PLMA 2024. We're going to talk about the show in general, the trends we saw, and help you get an idea of who the show is helpful for. So Pam, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Will you do a quick intro? Tell us about yourself.
Sure. So I am Pamela Derus, and I am director of R&D for a cookie company, Heavenly Hunks. Hopefully you've heard of us. If not, check us out. We're a gluten-free organic cookie, soft bake.
Yeah, fantastic. And you have a ton of product R&D experience.
Yes. So food science background, lots of commercialization projects, cost savings projects, reverse engineering, you name it. I've done it. So in the past, I also consulted for 3 years, worked for big CPG companies and then smaller companies. So I have a wide experience. I'm very fortunate and I love what I do. I love it.
That's fantastic. All right. So we went to PLMA together, which was very fun. I want to go to PLMA with you every time forever.
Same.
And we were kind of looking for different things. So from a packaging standpoint, there is a lot of my clients looking for additional co-packers or their co-mans looking to standardize what packaging they're using to increase efficiencies, increase capacity, things like that. So that's why I went to the show. Why did you go to the show?
I've never been, first of all, but I go there to get the register also because then you have this whole catalog of co-manufacturers because you never really know what's going to come up in the future. And when I was a consultant, that was huge because clients will come to you and ask for you to find a source of co-manufacturing for their product. So that way you can, at least you have a place to start and you can cold call because things are categorized by product.
Right.
But I went for that reason and then also looking for potentially, more gluten-free cookie capabilities. And then I knew like any new products that are gluten-free, which is hard to find. Like you'd think it'd be easy. It's actually very challenging. And so it's good to go there and be able to talk to the people to see what they are. Like on the website, when you go to the website, it's not everything that they do. So it's good to just say, you can walk past the booth and say, oh, you do cookies. And then you stop in and say, hey, do you do gluten-free or do you have capacity? And start that quick conversation.
So to your point, like the whole show is laid out in Chicago at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. So it's not that large of a venue. If you plan on drinking Starbucks, you should bring it with you because the line is always like 150 people long. And so it's a nice walkable show. And they do have the booths kind of organized. And so there was a section where there was a lot of international, and then there was a section with bakery. And then, I don't know, it's just organized from different areas of the world. I would say I didn't notice much organization beyond that. Like dairy wasn't separate from bakery.
No.
Like it was mostly international versus domestic. So you register for the show. I think, it's in Rosemont. So if you can get a place close to the venue, otherwise there's a lot of Ubering. And then when you go and you get your badge, they also give you this store brand book that Pam, you were mentioning. So this has it's like a giant directory of
super resourceful.
Yeah. And so you can look it up by company name. You can look up let's say you're looking for granola. You can look it up by product category and just be able to reference all of the co-mans that were there. And I'd say 99% of the people there were product producers. We walked past one logistics company.
Yep.
Otherwise, it was all private label food manufacturers. And what else? So say a little bit about what you noticed in terms of trends at the show this year.
There was a lot of waffles, like Belgian waffles, and there was a lot of pizzas. I noticed there wasn't a whole lot of frozen meals or stuff like that, which was kind of surprising. It was more shelf stable goods. And that's the coolest thing I saw, if you want to go there, is they had these quail eggs, which was really interesting. So from a product development standpoint, eggs, especially in the past couple years since COVID, really has been really volatile. Chicken eggs. And if we had an alternate source that could still label as eggs, that would be huge. Like, obviously they're smaller and we'd have to use more of them. But it's just an interesting idea that I saw that captured my attention. So that was fun.
Yeah, I agree with that. Quail eggs are really cute. They kind of look like dollhouse food. It looks,
Well,
it looks,
because you
I
were
mean, it's an
walking
egg,
by
but
and
it's
they were
just
just like
really
frying
small.
up these teeny tiny eggs.
And
Like, what the heck?
I know.
So that was fun.
Yeah. And where do you see, like, in terms of private label food manufacturing in general, what trends are you noticing from like a product R&D standpoint? Because, way back when, I guess maybe 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot of diversity in private label food manufacturing. I just think of like that gray and white striped Flavorite mac and cheese box, and where private label is now. What are you noticing from a product standpoint in the evolution of private label and food offerings?
I think it's trending more towards better for you. I would say it still has a long way to go, but I mean, 10 years ago, getting a gluten-free or organic option, it wasn't available. So people need the time to build gluten-free manufacturing facilities. That takes years. And you have to be at the forefront of that industry to have the innovation to be able to put in it. So people, it's kind of like build it and they will come, but you hope it shows up. And so I do notice that's where people may have some more capacity. Also different allergens, not just gluten, but dairy or peanut free facilities. Like, that's huge. So I do notice, and organic, you have to be organic certified to run in an organic facility. So that to me is where it's going. You're always going to have the big brands, but the versatility is what people are looking for, especially from a smaller business standpoint or startups. We don't have the volume to just automatically go on this giant line. And so it's this chicken and egg scenario, which what's going to come first. And you have to be able to get there and get that versatility going, and to have the smaller volume to start. So I think co-manufacturers are definitely seeing that, and they want to grow with a small company. They're not going to just get a big win and have somebody come in and drop all this volume. They see that that's not feasible. So that's been really, really great to see.
From your viewpoint, how do you think private label is going in general in terms of capacity and volume? And I know that the area of contract manufacturing that you look at is, it's not overarching, but any trends that you've noticed even with your work in the past?
As far as a trend, I'm not sure, but it's the growing pains. That is a trend. So when a small company starts to become a larger company, but you only have so much capacity, but you have a customer that's like, we need this and we need it now. Finding that capacity is like, okay, now we have the volume. Now what do we do? And so then you try and figure out this growth plan so that as your company grows, you can withhold that desire to like have your product.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, we've had many conversations about how the contract manufacturing world is it's almost like secretive. Like you need to
Very.
like,
How do
um,
you find somebody? I don't know.
that's the thing. And even when you Google these contract manufacturers, like if you get somebody's business card or whatever, they don't have their capacities all listed out. And I suppose some of that's from a proprietary standpoint, they don't, they can't share and things like that. But it's just, I think that's one of the values to the show is that you can't you can't figure out by Googling what you can going to the show and talking to
Correct.
people and
Yeah.
figuring out like what capacity they have or what they're willing to work with you to
True.
install because there's there is this entrepreneurial spirit in contract manufacturing of like you said earlier
Mm-hmm.
there's this interest in growing with successful brands and of course contract manufacturers don't want running 1,000 different things every day like that's not
Right.
ideal and
Not
also
profitable.
there's this understanding that a lot of businesses that are coming into contract manufacturing they may have already an established business but they may not and they may be growing and so now they need more capacity so they're looking to you the contract manufacturer to help fill the shelves but I heard a
Yeah.
lot of conversations about like well what if we did this or what if we did that
Yep.
or would you be interested could we put a bagger in here if we need a specific style of bag or whatever and it's just
Yeah.
they're open to having the conversations and talking about it versus like we have fixed assets we will not flex
Yep.
um and there's value in having those conversations at the show too.
There are some co-manufacturers that are willing to be more scrappy than others. It's just how badly do you need the business and that volume and what makes sense, you know? Um, and it starts with the allergenicity is what I found. Like you can't just go build a gluten-free facility overnight,
Right.
but you could potentially buy a new piece of equipment and put it in that facility. That's huge. And that'll get you there a
Right.
lot faster. So you're right.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it takes a while to build the facility, to create capacity, and then it's also this sort of anticipating future trends that
Yeah.
takes place too. So, what allergens are you going to allow into your facility? Gluten-free is
Mhm.
is a growing market, but it's still not the biggest market, and so there's some
Yeah.
critical business decisions to make um, around what you're
Absolutely.
going to allow in. You know.
Or how to find that um, balance of what kind of allergens are we going to allow?
Mhm.
Because I have found certain co-manufacturers, they do allow all the allergens, but they'll have segregated rooms within that facility, or they'll do the same line, but they'll do allergen cleans. So you
Okay.
have to fix that in to your costing and your
Yeah.
downtime and your production, but then you're able to have more versatility. And that is the trend that I saw is that co-mans are willing to be more versatile these days than say 10 years ago.
So maybe they'll have like a line they converted to gluten-free, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I'd say that that would be a preferred to um the may contains or not may contains the processed in a
Yeah.
facility. Yeah.
Because
There's
the
a
may
lot of
contain
caution.
statement, yeah, the may contain
Mhm.
statement is tricky.
Yeah.
Um, Not
So then
desirable.
is it basically then that they could create almost like I don't want to say a clean room, but it's a completely segregated, separated production line for
Yep.
gluten-free and that could be a
Yes.
certified line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Gluten is a little tougher than the other allergens. Um, but that's the idea, and that's what I've seen is that they're
Yeah.
able to do that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That makes sense. Um, oh, I thought another interesting booths that we saw actually were European.
Yep.
Um, there were a lot of frozen layered desserts
Yeah.
that were super detailed and complex, but they weren't
Really
handmade.
impressive.
Yeah. So like if you think about like a French patisserie, it was like
Yep.
all those really delicate desserts and I was talking to them about like how they manufacture, and a lot of them are molds the product is made in a mold and then it's stacked onto another product. So potentially the manual work in there, but there was all different types of textures, crunchy, almost like a mousse, and like puddings and cakes and different colors too, and little tarts. And I mean, it was, I
That
don't
was
remember
fun.
seeing those in the past. But creating sort of that freezer to refrigerator type of experience.
I noticed that when we went into that section, like the domestic versus the European, it was a very different vibe. And it noticed like the food just seemed, I hate to say it, but like higher quality, like the care that went into it. Like that's something the domestic, like you talk about these many layers and intense processing to it. I mean, that's something domestic would not even really consider. And I don't know why that is. I mean, you're not as profitable, but you could potentially charge more for the product because it took more care. So I notice in domestic, it's like crank it out and let's make some money, let's get some volume. Whereas European culture is not really like that. It's like, let's spend a lot of time and make this perfect thing, but it's going to be really special. And so that was unique to see.
Well, and eating in America versus eating abroad is, I don't know, it almost feels like different intentions, right? Like, is not the same type of experience.
Not at all.
I mean, America is like, and I don't know, maybe Europe is more on the go now than before too, but the times I've been to Europe, like you don't see people walking down the street eating very often. Like most people stop and eat, right? And then they focus on their food and then they're done. And then you've got America, it's like rah, 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 like Cookie Monster all day, right? Like
convenience is huge in America.
Like how can I eat really all like day?
In Europe. Snacks. I mean, snacks are huge.
Yeah, snacks are
in
like
the United States. In Europe, not as much.
Nope. What else? What else would you say about this show in general? Who do you think should go? Who do you think would find value?
Anyone, really. It just depends. Like an engineer could go learn different capabilities that are out there. Product developers could go out there to see how stuff is actually made. Operations, obviously, if you're looking for a co-manufacturer, if you're looking for capacity, if you're looking for capability, and yeah, this finding a co-manufacturer is such a black box. And you need a network to build a network, and that's a great network to know because they might not be the person, but they can find it for you because they know their competition. So I think anyone in the industry would benefit from going. Just depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of back to why I go, it's always good to understand trends and to understand the marketplace in general. And then I always have clients who are like, hey, would you look for this or would you look for that? I can't go this year. And that gives me an opportunity to get to know new people. And food and beverage is a really small world. I mean, the stuff the industry cranks out there's massive volume, but it's a small world. So some of these shows like this one is a little bit of a reunion too, because like everybody just shows up and goes. So it's fun.
Yeah. You run into people in the industry that you haven't seen in a while, and you just strike up a conversation. That happened a couple of times. So it's fun to network there. It's a really different group than if you were to go to like an ingredient supplier group or something like, a show like that. It kind of puts all the pieces together for me.
Yeah. Food people are fun, right? Like, everyone,
we try.
It's a good vibe. It's a good vibe. So yeah, cool. Well, thanks. Thanks for joining for the show today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks for joining us, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you found the content helpful, please be sure to share your comments with me by leaving a review so that I can keep the topics coming your way. If you haven't already followed me, click subscribe on your podcast app so you get notified the next time we release a show. If you have packaging issues you want to talk about, contact us via our website at www.strategicpackagingpartners.com and click on the Contact Us page. Thanks, everyone.